When the plumber finally knocked on the door, Martha nearly sighed with relief. For 5 days now, strange sounds had been coming from the basement. A scraping, as if someone were dragging a heavy object across the concrete floor, and sometimes a muted gurgling in the pipes that no amount of turning the valves could stop. The plumber introduced himself as Al. He was incredibly tall and thin, his white coveralls seeming too large for him, his long fingers constantly fidgeting with something. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes, which were too pale, almost translucent. "Don't you worry, ma'am," he said in a voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "I'll take a look." He went down to the basement, and Martha stayed in the living room trying to read. Unusual sounds drifted up from below. Not the clanging of tools, but muffled footsteps, as if someone were pacing out the space. After an hour, Al came back up, wiping his hands. "All clear. Pipes are old but sound. Probably just an airlock. It'll work itself out." "But the sounds," Martha began. "Sounds can be deceiving," he interrupted. "Especially in old houses. They're breathing." He said his goodbyes, and Martha was left alone. But that night, the scraping in the basement started again, now even louder. She called the company again. The same manager, sounding confused, assured her that no one named Al worked for them. A chill ran down her spine. The next day, she noticed the first change. The kitchen knife on the counter wasn't in its usual place. It was clean, but it smelled of damp earth. Then, she heard the TV turn on in the living room. The screen was filled with hissing static, and in the reflection of the dark screen, she saw a figure standing behind her for a split second. Tall and thin. She rushed to the front door, but it wouldn't open. The locks had been changed from the inside. Her cell phone was a dead brick, even though she distinctly remembered charging it. "Al?" she said aloud, her voice trembling. In response, the same scraping sound came from the basement. This time it was gaining tempo, becoming more insistent, rhythmic like a march. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed that same knife, and, pressed against the wall, moved toward the basement door. It was slightly ajar. From the darkness came a heavy, sweetish smell of raw earth and something else. Rotten. "I know you're down there," she shouted. "Come out." The scraping stopped abruptly. In the ensuing silence, she heard something heavy coming up the stairs. Slowly, step by step, Martha tightened her grip on the knife, ready to attack. But the figure that appeared in the doorway made her freeze. It wasn't Al. It was her husband, David, who wasn't due back from his business trip for another 3 days. He was pale, his clothes smudged with dirt. "David? How did you... What happened?" He didn't answer. His gaze was empty, directed right through her. He walked past her into the living room as if she weren't there. "David, talk to me." She touched his shoulder. He turned. His movement lacked any natural grace, as if he were being pulled by strings. He looked at her, and in the depths of his eyes, there was no recognition, no warmth. "I'm home," he said, but it wasn't his voice. It was the rasping, emotionless voice of Al. Martha stepped back, her heart beating against her ribs like a trapped bird. He walked to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and took out an apple. He took a bite and began to chew. Mechanically, his jaw moved with an unnatural, metallic regularity. She watched him, and a horrifying realization washed over her. This wasn't a ghost. This was something worse. It was a puppet, an empty shell that something had occupied. Something that now lived in her house, wore her husband's face, and was learning to be human by copying his routines. She whispered, "What did you do to him?" David turned his head. His lips stretched into a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "If something's broken," he whispered, using her own words from the phone call, "it needs to be replaced. I'm home. For good." Martha understood. She wasn't in danger. She was already trapped. She was the only witness, the only one who knew that the real David was never coming back. And now she had to live with this, with the thing that had taken his place, with the one who was home now, forever.